Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, "That is what you get, indeed." This is a little story from 2 years ago. I live in a very popular street where parking is difficult. There is a house with a parking space right on the street where I parked whenever I couldn't find anything else. One day I came to my car and noticed a small sheet of paper on my windshield. Obviously the people living in that house told me not to park my car in front of their house because it's their property. I was confused because it's literally an official marked parking spot on the street and they had their lot surrounded by a fence which my car didn't block or anything. My friend works for the city council and I asked her if that piece of the road is private property. She did some research and asked the people responsible for that matter and she said no, I was allowed to park there and it's not a private property. So I did. I parked my car there again. Of course, next day, piece of paper on my windshield. This time saying they would get my car towed. I ignored that. Nothing happened except more notes on my car that I just put back in their post box. I talked to the neighbors and they had a similar experience with that spot. That's probably why it was always unoccupied. The people living in the house had their own driveway, didn't need the spot, so they just didn't like it if someone parked in front of their house. One day I came to my car and noticed that someone had kicked off my side mirror, the one towards the fence. While I was busy picking up the glass from the street, the guy from the house came out and said something like, "Well, that's what you get." I was fuming. I called the police and everything, but I couldn't prove anything. Okay, that was the point where my ideas kicked in. In my country you can rent parking spots to park cars there with advertisements on them. My friend's dad, the one that worked for the council, had a used car dealership and did that sort of advertising quite regularly. So I told him about what happened and literally 2 days later on that parking spot was car trailer with a huge sign. It was 3 times taller than my car. I was so happy, plus he replaced my broken mirror. And then my time came. I saw the house owners in their garden fuming about the advert and I approached them with, "Oh, that is what you get." The faces, they were priceless. They tried to get the trailer removed but the spot was legally rented. And you know what? It's still there. Now there is still a lack of parking spaces in my street, but I think that is worth it. Next one is titled, "Wanna cut me off, then flip me off, to piss me off? Then I'll scare you off." This happened about 10 years ago. Sometimes when you're driving an older car, you have to deal with drivers who think every car should go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Well, one hot summer day I was driving my trash car home from college. The thing was on its last leg, so I was doing what I normally did in 100-degree weather during rush hour. I blasted my heat and switched to the fastest lane to get wind over the engine. I pull into an empty lane from behind a line of cars. But I failed to see some jerk going about 70, in a 45, careening towards me as I pull into the lane. He has to slow to the posted speed limit as I floor my gas to accelerate. In a few minutes he then proceeds to zigzag several lanes, flip me off and abruptly pull into my lane to get past, then slow way down to make me, and his bumper, very reliant on old brakes. As I said, my car was on its last leg and I was barely keeping it alive, but this was worth any possible repairs, so I started following the guy. Maybe you could call what I did next road rage or whatever, but I consider myself a pretty safe driver and I didn't want to hurt anyone, just convey a message. A very angry message. Well, I floored my gas to stay behind him for several blocks. Traffic started to clear a bit, so I was finally able to pass him. As I did, I gave him a good long angry stare while maintaining extremely aggressive eye contact. I'm a plus lady and normally about as threatening as a kitten. But I did this about 4 more times till the last time when I saw him with a scared look on his face. He made an abrupt U-turn to get away from me and screeched down the road in the other direction. Took me about 10 miles off my route, but as I watched his car retreat in my rearview mirror, I felt amazing. Next one is titled, "Was bored at work, so got a guy fired and possibly sent to prison for fraud." I work the night shift as a receptionist at a hotel in Norway, and most nights are spent watching Netflix, playing games. Last summer was really slow and I also worked a lot extra, so I ran out of stuff to watch and games to play. One night I got a mail from Scooter. He wanted to book a room for almost 20 days. I just had to send him the price and confirmation that we had rooms available, and he would then send me his credit card info for me to pre-charge. Normally we just delete these kinds of mail, but I was bored out of my mind, so I responded with an offer for around $2,000 for the entire stay. Also made sure to inform him that he could cancel for free up until the day of arrival. This is probably the most common fraud attempt in the hotel travel industry. Unlike most businesses, we are able to charge credit, debit cards with only the card number and EXP date. No need for a PIN code, CVC or other auth methods. Our software also allows us to deposit money directly to local and international bank accounts by using the card number. Because of this, shitheads like Scooter will try to prepay with stolen, skimmed cards, but then cancel the booking and asking us to refund the amount to a different card. A couple of hours after sending him the offer, he responded with a Visa number and told me to charge him as soon as possible. I checked the card with our validation software, and to my big surprise it did not belong to Scooter. If validation succeeds, it will return with the card owner's name 90% of the time. I sent him a new mail stating that the card was declined because of insufficient funds. He quickly replied and gave me a new card to try. Guess what? This one didn't belong to Scooter either. Wasn't even the same person as the first card. By checking the BIN codes, 6 first digits, I found which banks had issued the cards. Not even issued in the same country. My plan was to just call the banks and inform them of the attempted scam, but there were still several hours before I could go home, so I decided to duck with Scooter a bit more. Sent him a reply that the second card went through, and also the reference number for his stay at our hotel. As expected, a couple hours later Scooter sent a mail canceling the order and asked if we could refund the money to a different card, as he had lost his wallet and deactivated the card he paid with. This card was issued from a Polish bank. Not sure why, but Polish bank accounts are often used by people who want to launder money from bitcoins and drugs. You can buy a legit card for around $500 that is registered to some guy, girl in Poland from Darknet. At this point, Scooter was probably pretty happy about the $2,000 he soon would receive. I replied that it was no problem for me to transfer the $1 to a different card, as long as it was valid. How fun would it be to also cancel his own card, so that he had to spend $500 for a new one? Not fun enough. In the last mail I wrote that he could send me the card number, but that our email server would go down for maintenance in a few minutes, so my boss would do it on Monday. It was now Saturday morning, so enough time for the charged bank to call us and reverse the transfer. If he needed the money right away, I told him to call the hotel before I ended my shift at 7 o'clock. He called almost immediately, and I wrote down the card number and his phone number. Told him I transferred the money, and that it would be in his account by 12 o'clock. My shift ended, and I went home with all the info Scooter had provided. Wanted to see if I could find out who he was, and of course this idiot had an open Facebook profile that I found using his phone number. He even listed his address and employer. Looked a bit like the artist Scooter, but with even more ducked up face and spiky hair full of gel. He lived somewhere outside of London, in an area I would describe as a British trailer park. Houses that were nice at some point, but where the owners had spent £0 on maintenance since it was built. Thrash everywhere, and broken windows that were boarded up or fixed by sealing holes with garbage. Now to the fun part. According to his FB profile, Scooter worked at a hotel. This meant that he would have access to card information from guests that booked through sites like Booking.com. I called the manager of the hotel, and told him there were reason to believe that one of his employees were trying to commit credit card fraud, and that the card's numbers could belong to their guests. Gave him the name of the people who owned the card Scooter tried to pay with, and to no surprise both had stayed at the hotel. Told him it was Scooter, and the manager just exploded in anger. Not 100% sure what he said because he was screaming so loud, but I think Scooter wasn't a normal employee. He worked there through some kind of government training program or something. After talking to the manager, I called both Visa and MasterCard International and told them about Scooter's little business venture. Apparently it's pretty easy to check if there are more cards that have been involved in fraud, where the cards also have been used at Hotel Scooter. With his Polish deposit account info, they would also be able to pin it on Scooter if he had been successful in scamming anyone, and sue him for the amount stolen. The police also called me later to get a statement regarding the whole situation, so I know that the manager reported it to the police. Not sure what happened to Scooter, but according to his Facebook profile, he no longer works at the hotel. Or anywhere else as far as I can see. Next one is titled, "Pretend to be a nice lady? We'll reveal the truth." This happened when I was 19, so about 5 years ago. I was walking home from a friend's house one morning and had my headphones in. He lived a bit out of town. We lived in a small town of 4,000 people. As I was walking, I turned the corner to get onto the main road. I had a big ditch to the left of me, and a row of rundown houses to the right. Then I see 2 dogs running towards me. I'm used to dogs running around here and looking for treats or to get pet. Anyways, one dog quits running while the other, a boxer breed, runs towards me. He bites my ankle. He latches down, ducking hard. I scream out in pain. He drags me down into the ditch. I fall on my back, look up and see this dog dive at my face. I kick him in the face and jump up. There is a car honking at me that is trying to get me to get in. I crawl up the ditch, dog bites my leg again. Kick it, then get to the car. Dog jumps up at me, I block it with my arm. Now I have one bloody leg and one scratched up arm that is bleeding profusely. I get into the car and land in the lap of 2 women. I'm apologizing for asking to be taken to the hospital. I'm a ducking mess. One woman says my name and says we were classmates. I apologize that I don't recognize her. They are coming home from church. I jumped into a car of Jehovah's Witnesses. The driver says he's going to drive slowly past the place. We see the boxer dog run up to a house, a woman looking outside, checking to see if the coast is clear, and lets him inside. Fuck that witch. I call my mom and explain to her I'm heading to the hospital. She laughs but then realizes I'm serious. We get there. I apologize for the blood on their car and get wheelchaired into the hospital. I have a nurse working on my arm and a doctor working on my leg. The wound wasn't deep enough for stitches, but the tooth got wiggled around when I tried getting him off. The bite mark is pouring out blood. It takes about 10 of those iodine needle things to clean it out. Then they do the other side of my leg. My mom gets there seeing tons of bloody bandages and stuff around me. She freaks out and calls the cops. After I'm cleaned up and on some good pain meds, I talk to an officer. After he takes some pics of my wounds for the case, I talk him through what happened. We then decided to go to the owner's place and check it out. We get there, cop knocks on the door. The woman opens it. "Excuse me, ma'am, I have a gentleman here who was knocked into that ditch by a dog living here, supposedly." The woman goes, "No, my dog Hannibal, literally his name. Couldn't make that up. It's an old dog who only has a couple of teeth. No way would he hurt someone." Hannibal looks out and starts barking and snapping towards me. The woman drags him back. Policeman: "Well, I've seen enough." Woman: "Are they pressing charges?" Police: "Not sure yet." So I go home, think about it and decide that I want my hospital costs to be paid for. And then a little bit for the pain. I think the total was like $2,000. The hospital was about $1,250 of it. My mom's friend who was a lawyer said I could sue for up to $5,000. I decline and then get asked if I want the dog put down. I have a dog of my own. I love dogs. I couldn't put the dog down. I decline on that also. Knowing I don't want to have someone's animal put down if they love him. So fast forward a month. I am told the owner wants to go to court to argue against the charges. Excuse me, what? This is a clear-cut case. I have eyewitnesses. Doctors that saw my injuries, pictures, and a policeman who saw your dog go after me on site. What the heck? So I go to the courthouse, and even though the woman was not supposed to talk to me until we were in the courtroom, she comes over to me and says, "I can't afford this. I'm so sorry. I have to fight it." Now I feel bad. I stay quiet and we go into the courtroom. I tell my side of it, the witnesses do too. I feel bad the whole time thinking this woman is about to lose everything. The policeman will show his findings the next day. I don't sleep all night. Next morning policeman comes by my place and asks to talk with me. I sit outside with him and tell him I think I'm going to drop most of the charges because I feel bad for this old lady. The policeman says, "Not so quick. I did some digging." He shows me pictures of the house and a small backyard in the back. There are literally 6 dogs, all boxers, stuffed inside this tiny backyard. Oh duck no. It gets worse. She owns them and keeps them for a wealthy guy in New York City. He sells them to people, not telling them that they are cooped up and aggressive as duck. I instantly think they are going to be put in dogfighting rings and such. I research the price of a pure blood boxer. They can go from $500 to $3,000. She has 6 of them. B Street, she can't afford it. I'm sure she's had some other dogs before too. So I'm ready to do what needs to be done. Back to the courtroom. Judge. Yesterday, I was told you were thinking about dropping the charges or at least lowering them. Me. Yes, Your Honor. The woman gets really excited. Me. That is, until this morning. I found out some unsettling news about animal neglect and animal abuse. The woman's face gets shocked and then glares at me. Policeman goes and explains to the judge how the woman had never let the dogs out in the 3 days he watched the house. Fed them very little, and ignored them completely. Hannibal had gotten through the fence and bit me. Judge is obviously an animal lover. Gets furious at the woman. I end up getting hospital bills covered, plus an additional $3,000. Woman loses all dogs to the animal shelter. I heard a couple had to be put down because they were so violent. The dude in New York got investigated, but I think he paid something that made it go away. The woman moved out of town after local paper heard the news of it. Moral of the story? If you stab me in the back, you better damn well make sure you kill me. Last one is titled, "Park in front of my driveway blocking my mom's exit?" Have fun paying $150 plus to get your car back. So, a little bit of backstory. My mom used to leave for work every day when I was a kid, so my driveway was used a lot. So, my family lives next to these douchebag neighbors, shorted to DBN for time. They would blast music and have tons of loud parties late at night, and because of these large parties, their driveway would fill up quickly. Sometimes DBN would come over to our house and knock on the door asking if they could use some of our driveway for their friends to park on. For reference, my family's driveway is set up like where the driveway is leading up to our garage. But just before that it splits and goes alongside my house, giving us an outside parking area. This is where DBN wanted his friends to park. So, one night after my mom has come home, my family starts hearing loud dubstep music coming from DBN house. My family and I decide not to think anything of it, and continue on with the night. By around 1 a.m. the music dies down. So my mom wakes up the next morning. She had parked her car in the garage that night because of rain the next day. My mom opens the garage door to a small BMW M5 in a nice icy blue color, blocking her exit. And because of this, she can't go to work unless the car is moved. So my mom walks over to DBN's house and knocks on his door. No answer. She knocks again. No answer. She assumes that DBN is blacked out from his partying. Keep this in mind. No other cars are in our driveway anymore, so the blue M5 has to be DBN, also because she has seen this car in DBN's driveway. As my mom is walking away from DBN's house, the front door opens, and out steps half-awake DBN. The following conversation is as described by my mom. Douchebag neighbor equals DBN. DBN. What do you want? In a half-awake, groggily voice. Mom. Oh, I think you left your car in my driveway from last night. Also, why is it parked in my driveway? DBN. You said I could put cars in your driveway. Mom. No, I didn't. I told you that your friends can park in that little extra part of my driveway. Anyways, you're parked in front of my garage. DBN. Stop complaining, and just drive around my car. Slams door. My mom is now upset. She's the person who would go lengths for revenge on people. She's like, "Oh, you wanna play that game? It's on." My mom goes on her computer and looks up the nearest towing company, gives them a call, and they are here in half an hour. Once they pull up to DBN's car, they instantly recognize it. They said DBN has been towed many times by many people. So they just hook up his car and take it to the lot. Later on, my mom figured out that DBN had to pay around $150 to $200 to get his car back. He's never asked to park in our driveway again. Now my mom tells this story at family events and gets a good laugh. Thanks for listening.